Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, you and I served together in Congress for 15 years. We didn't always agree, but I believe we shared some common values: a belief in defending democracy and human rights abroad and honoring the Constitution at home. That's why I voted to confirm you. I believed you would stand up for those principles. You haven't. You've done the opposite. And you used to speak with conviction about the importance of foreign aid as a tool to advance American values and interests. Then you stood by while Elon Musk took a chainsaw to USAID and other assistance programs. That has left a staggering toll: broken trust with countries, openings for China and other adversaries, and countless preventable deaths of children and others. Take Sudan, for example. The freezing of U.S. humanitarian assistance forced the closure of nearly 80% of the emergency food kitchens there. 2 million famine-affected people were left without access to food. People died because of those actions: mothers, fathers, and children. Tons of emergency food that could have saved their lives was left rotting in warehouses because you and Elon Musk refused to let USAID do its job. Sudan is a country where, by the administration's own determination, a genocide is unfolding in Darfur. But here—
What's going on, Patriots? Welcome back to the Heritage Hustle, the only place where truth still matters and American values aren't up for debate. Today, we're diving into one of the most ridiculous, politically motivated hit jobs I've seen in years. I'm talking about the Senate grilling between Senator Van Gala and our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. If you haven't seen the clip, buckle up. Van Gala, who I'm convinced spends more time reading radical Twitter threads than actually serving the American people, launched into a wild, delusional tirade against Secretary Rubio. And folks, when I say unhinged, I mean full-blown tinfoil hat unhinged.
But here's where it goes from cruel to despicable. While cutting off food aid to Sudanese families living through an actual genocide, you're fast-tracking white South Africans for refugee status under a manufactured claim that they are the victims of genocide. You tried to block the admission of individuals who had already been approved to come here as refugees while making bogus claims to justify granting such status to Afrikaners. You've made a mockery of our country's refugee process, turning it into a system of global apartheid where political ideology and race, more than truth or need, matter. And while you've turned away from a genocide in Sudan and invented one in South Africa, you teamed up with President Trump to throw the Ukrainian people under the bus and have been played like a fiddle by Vladimir Putin. Of course, Donald Trump not only said he would end the war in Ukraine on day one, he also said he would end the war in Gaza on day one. And yet last week, you were all running around to Gulf states giving away very sensitive American AI and chips technology, but doing nothing to end the war in Gaza and get the remaining hostages returned. You know that for 78 days, the Netanyahu government did not allow a scrap of food to enter Gaza to reach over 2 million civilians. 57 children have died from malnutrition so far, and more than 14,000 children are in imminent danger of dying of starvation. As Cindy McCain said last week, and I quote, "Families in Gaza are starving while the food they need is sitting at the border." That is a gross violation of both U.S. and international law. What did you do? Nothing. Not once did you publicly call upon the Netanyahu government to end the blockade. Fortunately, other countries spoke out, and now we see a tiny trickle going in. Where have you focused your energy instead, Mr. Secretary? Well, your first trip as Secretary of State was to El Salvador, not to promote democracy, but to cozy up to President Bukele, who calls himself the world's coolest dictator. The result was a cash for collusion deal to deprive people living in America of their constitutional rights to due process. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0 decision, instructed you to facilitate the return to the United States of Abrego Garcia, who the administration admitted was wrongfully deported to El Salvador. Your response? You've openly flouted judicial orders, When asked whether you have been in touch with El Salvador to return Abrego Garcia, you boasted, quote, "I would never tell you that. And you know who else I would never tell? A judge." Clearly, you don't care about the Fifth Amendment right to due process, and you don't care about the First Amendment either, since you've been very busy snatching students off of college campuses for exercising their right to free speech. You dredged up a relic from the McCarthy era to claim that student protesters posed a threat to the foreign policy of the United States. Give me a break, Mr. Secretary. You know as well as I do this isn't about national security, it's about punishing free speech. And you know that in America, the government doesn't get to use its power to punish speech it doesn't like. Yet in March, you boasted about revoking student visas, saying, and I'm quoting, "We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa," unquote. Let's look at one of those lunatics, Mr. Secretary, Ms. Ozturk. Her crime was co-authoring an op-ed in her college paper critical of Tufts University's response to the war in Gaza. Your own department found zero links to terrorism, no anti-Semitic statements, but you still yanked her visa and shipped her off to detention in Louisiana. And the list goes on and on. The federal judge in the case of Mohsen Madawi, who is the Columbia student who was ambushed by federal agents at his citizenship appointment, said, and I quote, this is the judge, "Legal residents not charged with crimes or misconduct are being arrested and threatened with deportation for stating their views on the political issues of the day. Our nation has seen times like this before, especially during the Red Scare and Palmer raids. Like the McCarthy-era witch hunts of the 1950s, your campaign of fear and repression is eating away at foundational values of our democracy. Back then, it took one voice, Attorney Joseph Welch, to cut through the hysteria with the simple question that marked the beginning of the end of that shameful era. He asked Senator McCarthy, have you no sense of decency? And I would ask you the same, Secretary Rubio. But you have shown through your words and your actions what the answer is. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's
about
just
your
a
record
flippant
and what you
statement,
stand
Mr.
for.
Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask
Senator,
questions.
please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his
Your
response.
time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well-
your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr. Chairman-
Secretary, please.
Well, I'd like to. I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation.
I raised
don't regret
Sudan, Mr.
psychosocial support services.
I
for
raised
USAID.
Sudan, Mr. Secretary.
Can I
not
respond, Mr.
Mozambique.
Chairman, or do I?
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes of
I chose to
railing that.
use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use
suspend
my time that way.
Secretary Rubio.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come,
Mr.
you're
Chairman,
going to see who you went to
look,
defend.
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary
No.
Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated
Senator,
comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court in the
Senator-
United States because
Well,
he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy. No judge can tell me how I have to outreach to a foreign partner or what I need to say to them. And if I do reach to that foreign partner and talk to them, I have under no obligation to share that with the judiciary branch. Just like a judge cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister of Russia, they cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister or the president of El Salvador. And if I did negotiate with them, which we have responded to them, and we've told them, we've had communications with the president of El Salvador, I am under no obligation under our division of powers in this country and to share with the judicial branch how I conduct the diplomacy of the United States. It would actually be counterproductive. If I started sharing with courts, or frankly, with the media, my conversations with foreign leaders and all of their details, no foreign leader would talk to me again, and we would break trust with them. So I have complied with every court order. What I won't comply with is an order to disclose what I'm saying and what we're talking about with a foreign leader, because then they won't talk to me. Diplomacy doesn't work that way. About the student visas, let me say this. I don't deport anybody, and I don't snatch anybody. The State Department does not have officers in the street snatching everybody. What I do is revoke visas, and it's very simple. A visa is not a right. It is a privilege. People apply for student visas to come into the United States and study. And if you tell me that you're coming to the United States to lead campus crusades, to take over libraries and try to burn down buildings and acts of violence, we're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what Ms. Ozturk did?
We're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what she did? Come on, Mr. Secretary.
And every single one of these
blowing
cases, the
smoke
factors
here
are
now.
different.
Senator,
the bottom line is, if you're
Senator,
coming here to stir up trouble on our campuses, we will deny you a visa. And if you
Does
have
the
a
First
visa
Amendment
and we find
apply
you,
to
we'll
people
revoke
living
it.
in the United
And
States?
we're going to do more. There are more coming. We're going to continue to revoke the visas of people who are here as guests and are disrupting our higher education facilities. People are paying money. These kids pay money to go to school, and they have to walk through a
Writing an
bunch of
op-ed
lunatics
to the
who are
Tufts
here on student
newspapers
visas.
disrupting the
Simple
foreign
as
policy of the United
I want to
States?
do more. I hope we can
That's
find more of these people.
pathetic, Mr.
In fact, the other day, some guys led a riot. I forgot what university it was, and I asked, please, can you find the arrest records of all the people that were arrested at that riot at that campus? Because if any of them have a visa, we're going to revoke it.
I feel so much safer
All right,
when you lock
let's,
up people like Ms. Ozturk, Mr. Secretary.
We've had enough time on the subject. Thank you very much.
Let me lay it out for you. Senator Van Gala opens up by saying he regrets voting to confirm Rubio. Why? Because Rubio, get this, had the nerve to put America's interests first. He cut foreign aid waste, refused to grovel before genocidal regimes, and dared to say, maybe, just maybe, student visas shouldn't be handed out like Halloween candy to radical activists trying to torch our institutions. Oh, the horror. He claims Rubio betrayed democracy, human rights, and the Constitution. You know, the same Constitution these leftists trample every time they censor speech, attack religious liberty, or ignore due process for conservatives. But suddenly, Van Gala's all about defending rights? Please. One of Van Gala's biggest sob stories was about Sudan. He blames Rubio, and hilariously, Elon Musk, for shutting down 80% of emergency food kitchens. He even claims 2 million people were left without food. Now listen, I'm not saying the suffering in Sudan isn't real, but let's be honest, it's not America's job to babysit the world. Especially not when we're $34 trillion in debt and our own citizens are struggling to pay for groceries. This bleeding heart narrative is a distraction. We send billions overseas to countries that hate us. We fund programs with no oversight, no accountability, and zero measurable results. Rubio is right to pull the plug. If saving children requires funneling taxpayer money to corrupt regimes and bloated NGOs that spend half of it on social cohesion seminars, I say no thanks. Van Gala had the gall to accuse Rubio of creating a system of global apartheid. You know why? Because Rubio dared to allow white South Africans to apply for refugee status. Let that sink in. According to Van Gala, recognizing that white farmers in South Africa face real violent persecution is somehow a fake genocide. But when it comes to Sudan, suddenly he's the patron saint of humanitarian aid. Guess what, Senator? Persecution doesn't come with a skin tone. If people are being murdered because of who they are, whether they're black, white, Christian, or Jew, we should at least tell the truth. But the left can't handle that. They only believe in human rights when it fits their agenda. Van Gala also claims the Trump administration, and Rubio by extension, threw Ukraine under the bus and got played like a fiddle by Putin. Really? The same Trump who armed Ukraine with lethal aid after Obama sent them blankets? The same Trump who obliterated Russian mercenaries in Syria and sanctioned Nord Stream 2? Let me remind you, this war in Ukraine escalated under Biden. The same Biden who's shipped over $100 billion to Zelensky while our borders are overrun, our cities are burning, and veterans sleep on the streets. But Van Gaala's mad because Rubio didn't fall in line with this globalist money pit? Cry me a river. Now we get to Gaza. The senator is practically weeping over food not reaching Hamas territory. He claims Israel blockaded aid for 78 days, that 57 children died from malnutrition, and over 14,000 are at risk. Look, no one wants kids to suffer. But here's what Van Gaala refuses to admit. Hamas is using those children as human shields. They hijack aid, hide in schools, and fire rockets from hospitals. And the left wants Israel and America to just hand them more resources? That's suicidal. If Van Gaala actually cared about peace, he'd demand Hamas release hostages and surrender. Instead, he spends his time moralizing while calling Israel's self-defense a war crime. Give me a break. Now let's talk about the so-called free speech crackdown on college campuses. Van Gaala went full 1950s with his Red Scare comparisons, whining that Rubio revoked visas for foreign students who protested the war in Gaza. Let me explain something. A visa is not a right, it's a privilege. If you're a guest in this country and you spend your time trying to dismantle our institutions, tear down American flags, occupy campus buildings, and threaten Jewish students, you don't get to stay. Period. Rubio's 100% right here. We should be revoking visas of anyone abusing our generosity. And if you call that McCarthyism, well, then maybe McCarthy was onto something. One of the most brilliant moments in Rubio's defense was when he pulled out the receipts. He exposed how USAID spent millions, yes, millions, on absurd programs like male circumcisions in Mozambique, $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the heck that means, and $227,000 for a Big Cat's YouTube channel. I'm not making this up. Your tax dollars are going to Alliance influencer career on YouTube. And Van Gaala wants more of this garbage? These people are delusional. Van Gaala also threw a tantrum because Rubio didn't comply with a court order to explain his conversations with El Salvador's president. Sorry, Senator, but Rubio nailed it. No judge can force the executive branch to disclose foreign diplomacy. That's not how our system works. This is Civics 101. The judiciary doesn't run foreign policy. And if we started telling every court and journalist what we say in private meetings with world leaders, we'd destroy every diplomatic relationship we have. Rubio's not defying the Constitution, he's protecting it. The real threat here? Leftist overreach disguised as justice. Let me end with this. What Van Gaala and the radical left want is clear. They want open borders, unlimited foreign aid, America on her knees, and speech codes for anyone who disagrees. And they're furious that Secretary Rubio won't play along. I say this to Secretary Rubio: thank you. Thank you for standing up to this circus. Thank you for reminding us that leadership means making hard choices, not virtue signaling on the Senate floor. And to Senator Van Gaala, you said you regret voting for Rubio? That's the best endorsement Rubio could have asked for. Folks, if you're tired of this nonsense, if you're tired of watching our country get dragged through the mud by globalist elites and moral hypocrites, then do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with every red-blooded American you know, and make sure you're subscribed to the Heritage Hustle for more unapologetic truth. Until next time, stay free, stay loud, and never stop hustling for our heritage. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Subscribe for more The Heritage Hustle.